Thank you for joining us today for this session of Innovative Approaches to School Success focused on substance use. My name is Christy Gagne, and I'm a program manager for Telehealth Rocks. Telehealth Rocks is a federally funded program that focuses on school-based behavioral health, and we do this by working on social determinants, supporting school-based services, and telemetry training just like this one. I've got a couple of notes for you before we get started. This session is being recorded and we will send it to you afterwards. Your microphone has been muted, but you can use the chat or unmute to ask questions at any time. And then please make sure your first and last name are visible on your Zoom screen or that you've typed it into the chat. It really helps us track attendance. All right, we have no disclosures and everything presented today is evidence-based and currently accepted within the profession. And then after the session, we will share the slides and recording just as soon as we can. Give us a little bit of time to process that, and we will send it out via email to everybody. This is the last session, so certificates of attendance for the entire series will be sent out just as soon as we've got them processed. Again, watch your email for those. And then you'll receive a short survey about this training, and we would really love your feedback. We do look at everything, and it helps us plan our future trainings. And then if there are any questions or any follow-up that you need, please feel free to send any questions you have to our Telehealth Rocks email address, and I will put that here in the chat. All right, with that, I will hand it over to Robert Stiles.
Sure. Well, we're really pleased to have two of our other partners in Telehealth Rocks here today to present. Meg Hasselman is the programs coordinator with HeadQuarters Kansas, and Chrissy Mayer is the chief community-based services officer, excuse me, with DECA. I'm just getting over a cold, so if I'm spacey today, I hope you all will forgive me. Next slide, please. So we came about this series because Telehealth Rocks is this partnership across Kansas and Missouri that works together to meet the needs of kids and their families. Headquarters and DECA are two of our partners, along with about, well, more than 30 others. Right now, our main partnerships or funded partnerships are school districts in Southeast Kansas, but we work across Kansas and Missouri and are here to support you and happy all of you are part of our partners as well in our echoes. So in each of these sessions, partners have discussed innovative approaches to help think about community partnerships with schools on topics that are important. And today we're going to be talking about substance use, which is incredibly important, and especially talking about some preventive approaches or some programs that Headquarters and DECA pilot that really have a preventive as well component to help prevent the initiation and minimize substance use. Please go ahead. Next slide. So we've talked about our vision, right? We believe that every kid should have the same opportunity. And we really believe that we can transform our communities by both creating new approaches, but also really trumpeting and continuing to expand and grow approaches that we see working. And we're going to hear about some of those approaches that are working today, specifically around Douglas County and other parts of the state. Our values are that it should be comprehensive. We want everybody at the table working together for kids, responsive. We really want to meet local needs and have the local areas and school districts define what they need. Expansive, we want to make use of existing models, and we're going to hear about a couple of those today. Receptive, right? We want it to meet the communities and school districts that we work with. We don't think there's ever a one idea fits everything. We believe that everything should respond to local needs and fit local communities. And then it's inclusive, that our local communities and everybody that's involved in this work to support kids needs to be equally involved and have an equal voice in what we do. Next slide, please. So I want to hand off to Meg with Headquarters Kansas, and she can talk a little bit about work that they've done that really has an impact on substance use.
Thanks, Robert. Excuse me. I apologize ahead of time if you can hear any banging that's happening. Our neighbors are getting a new roof today, so that was perfect timing for me to do this presentation at home. So I'm with Headquarters Kansas. My name's Meg Hasselman. I use she, her pronouns. And if you want to advance to the next slide, we will talk a little bit more about what Headquarters does. So we are currently the main 988 operator for the state of Kansas. So we answer calls, texts, and chat through the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. We also operate a local crisis line through that 785 number that acts as dispatch for mobile response and provides folks that don't have a Kansas area code the opportunity to connect with a local crisis line. Our services through the crisis line are free and confidential and available 24/7. We also provide in-person counseling services for folks that are experiencing a variety of mental health issues, including chronic suicidality and acute suicidality. We have recently in the fall opened a new line, which will be probably particularly of interest for you all. It is a youth-to-youth support line. So that line operates Thursday through Sunday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So in the fall, we had a cohort of, I think, 8 youth who went through our training to learn supportive counseling skills and be able to provide just support for other youth who maybe need to connect with a young person. If somebody calls that line and they're experiencing a suicide or other crisis, they will hand the call off to an adult counselor. Our youth are trained in crisis intervention, but our preference is that adults be the ones that manage those crises in the moment. Great resource. After I am done speaking, because I'm not good at multitasking, I will put the number to that line in the chat. We also provide training and education at headquarters. So we do a lot of stuff like this. We go into healthcare and behavioral healthcare settings, schools, other social service organizations to help folks improve their suicide care or approaches around suicide prevention and intervention. We also do some policy and advocacy work at the State House, advocating for policy and legislation that will improve suicide care across the state. And then we also partner with different groups and just kind of put out our own suicide prevention and public awareness campaigns as well. Next slide. So what Chrissy and I are really talking about today through the program that we'll fill you all in on is upstream prevention. For those who are not aware, upstream prevention is a strategy where you're not focusing so much on the intervention piece, you're establishing programs and supports before a crisis arises. So the earlier on in a youth's life that you can start implementing coping skills and protective factors, the better long-term outcomes are. So there's a story that we like to share about upstream prevention, and any folks that are experienced in prevention will have heard this story, so I apologize for the repeat information there. But I think it's helpful for folks who aren't as familiar with upstream prevention to kind of paint a picture of why upstream prevention is so important. So the story we like to share is that there was a village that was situated near a river, and that river led to a waterfall. And every morning there was one particular person who would go out and walk next to the river, just as a morning routine. And one morning this person was walking and they heard some shouting from the river, and they noticed that somebody was in the river struggling. And so they did what any of us would do, and they jumped in and pulled that person to safety. And so this person went back to the village and shared the news. I saved someone's life. This is so exciting. Everyone celebrated and rallied around that person. And then the next morning they were out for their morning walk again, and the same thing happened. They heard some shouting. So they jump in, pull that person to safety. Right when they get to the land, they hear another shout. And so they jump back in and pull that person to safety. And they go back to the village and they say, this keeps happening. I don't know what's going on. And so they do all these things like train folks to be lifeguards, build a watchtower so that people can sit really tall and see if anyone's falling into the water. And they trained everyone in CPR, and they did put a lot of effort into this, and they saved a lot of lives, but they weren't able to save every life. And so one morning the person decided, you know what, I'm going to take a walk upstream and I'm going to see why people are falling into the water in the first place. So they walk upstream, they find that there was a gap in the fence, and so people were falling in there. And essentially the story is demonstrating that if we put some services and programs in place early on, the better the outcomes tend to be long-term. So the prevention strategy that Chrissy and I are talking about today fall under this upstream prevention umbrella. Next slide. So we are also talking about a shared risk and protective factor approach. I really like this quote from SAMHSA. Risk and protective factors are characteristics at the biological, psychological, family, community, or cultural level that is associated with higher or lower likelihood of problem outcomes. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So with shared, actually, if you could go back to the last slide, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So shared risk and protective factors between substance use and suicide tend to be pretty interconnected. So that means that things that increase risk for substance misuse also are things that increase risk for suicide. And the same goes for protective factors. Similar strategies that are used for preventing misuse of substances also are really effective in preventing suicides long term. Now we can go to the next slide. So this just really demonstrates the kind of crossover between substance use disorders and suicide. And so essentially what it's saying is that when somebody is experiencing a substance use disorder, their increased risk for suicide is very present, right? And folks who are thinking about suicide or at risk for suicide tend to engage in substance use, which can increase the likelihood that someone will attempt or die by suicide. So it's a pretty heavy crossover there. And when we implement strategies that address both of those risk factors, both of those health disparities, then we know that the effects are much more positive. Next slide. So HeadQuarters and DECA started to collaborate on prevention efforts. And this started through the Douglas County Public Health Plan. I believe this was I don't remember. Chrissy will probably know. I think 2017 or 2018 is when that plan initially came out. And it highlighted that suicide prevention and substance use prevention are two priorities in our county that need to be addressed. And so the county went to HeadQuarters and DECA and said, you all do suicide prevention and substance misuse prevention. So if you collaborate, right, then you'll be able to address some of those shared risk and protective factors. And so that is how DECA and HeadQuarters came to partner on this particular project. We have a long history of collaborating with DECA, but specifically for this program, that's how that came to be. Okay, next slide. Oh, I guess that's all for me. So Chrissy is going to talk about the substance use side of this, and she'll more specifically highlight the program that we co-sponsor, which is called YEP, the Youth Empowerment and Prevention Program. And if there are any specific questions about the suicide prevention piece, I am happy to speak to that.
Oh, thanks, Meg. Appreciate it. That was a really good just kind of background about how we got to where we are today. So my name is Chrissy Mayer, and I'm with DECA. So I oversee our community-based services division, which is where the work of Engage Douglas County and YEP occur. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll just share a little bit about DECA and what we do in general. So our behavioral health services are implemented across Kansas, offering residential and outpatient treatment, and also some mental health treatment services. We are home-based in Lawrence, Kansas, but we do have offices in Wichita, Pittsburgh, Pratt as well. So kind of all over there. We're also a child placing agency where we train and recruit foster homes, and we have more than 400 foster homes in Kansas right now. In our community-based services division, we have traffic safety and prevention work. So with our prevention work, we support a variety of community coalitions across the state. And then we also have traffic safety programs and prevention programming in the state of Oklahoma, also Iowa and Missouri as well. So really trying to branch out into the Midwest piece a little bit. We also offer family preservation programs in the Kansas City metro and then also the Wichita region. And then finally, we have a pretty robust research and analysis division. You might actually see them out and about right now. We're implementing our child safety seat survey right now. So we have some observers out on the side of the road documenting folks who might be using their seatbelts or not. And so we partner with NHTSA on that project. Next slide, please. So as Meg mentioned, the county came to us in about 2018 with the idea of, hey, we really need to address substance use and suicide. Out of the community health plan, there were 3 areas that emerged. One of those was prioritizing prevention. Another piece focused on integration across the systems of care, and the other was improving access to care. So out of this, many of you might have heard about our treatment and recovery center. This was really born out of a lot of this work as well. But we're really going to focus on this prioritized prevention piece, which is where we've seen a lot of great things happen. The first was the formation of a community coalition, which we call Engage Douglas County. We currently have over 80 partners on that coalition. And we really focus heavily on substance misuse and suicide prevention, because as Meg mentioned, these really do intertwine, and really you can't address one without addressing the other. They're really that intertwined. With Engage, after about a year or so of working with the Adult Coalition, we recognized a big gap with our youth work, and we formed the Youth Empowerment and Prevention group. It actually started out as the Douglas County Youth Prevention Board, or DCYPB. That was a mouthful, and the kids thought we could do better. And so we became YEP about 2 years ago, started in with YEP and some rebranding with that. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about Douglas County in general. We're a pretty young community, so almost a quarter of the population is under 18. And it is comprised of primarily 4 cities: Lawrence, Eudora, Baldwin, and then Lecompton. So one of the school districts we work in, the Perry-Lecompton School District, half of it sits in Jefferson County, the other half sits in Douglas, but we work fully with them as well. We have 2 colleges as well, actually 3. So we have KU, Baker, and then also Haskell Indian Nations University as well, which often having a college campus does bring some, some great things, and then also some challenges, especially related to acceptance related to underage drinking and other substance use. We also have a really long history of acceptance of substance use. Kind of a fun fact I like to share. I don't know if it's really fun or not, but it's interesting. Marijuana use in Lawrence in particular has some very interesting fines associated with it. So if you're caught with marijuana in Lawrence, the first fine for possession is $1. Your second fine for possession is also $1. However, your third fine for possession becomes a felony, which is really problematic. And so often, especially with our college population, a lot of them are not from this area. And so when they come in realizing, oh, marijuana, no big deal, it's just $1 fine. And then by the time you're caught with possession for a third time, it's a felony. That can really impact how your life rolls out. So we've tried to do a lot of education related to that as well. Next slide, please. We utilize the strategic prevention framework for both our youth and adult coalition. So this is an evidence-based planning model that really has a 5-step process, and then with sustainability and cultural competence in between. So we worked closely with our Engage Douglas County Coalition. We spent about a year planning, walking through how we wanted to offer things, how we wanted to do things, what this looked like. And then after the year of planning, we actually applied for a drug-free community support, or drug-free community grant, which are grants available through the CDC. These are about $125,000. And so with that grant, we've been able to focus really on building the coalition and then also addressing youth substance use. The 2 primary substances that we focus on in Douglas County are alcohol and marijuana. However, with county funding, we also address marijuana, suicide prevention, and also prescription drug misuse as well. Next slide, please. This was just a process overview. I mentioned that we spent about a year reviewing our data. Another challenge that we had initially, the first year that we came together as a coalition, we had no data available. The school districts have had challenges since 2015 participating in the KCTC student survey data. And so Douglas County as a whole did not have enough participation. And so fortunately, we were able to do a lot of focus groups, do some other data collection data, and really focus on, how do we identify what the problems are. The first year, we spent a lot of time meeting with students so they could address what the issues they were seeing were, and that really helped us develop our plan. So with our first year of Drug-Free Communities grant, we used our focus group data and other data sources to kind of paint the picture and tell the story of what was happening in our community. So with that, we developed a logic model and action plan utilizing that strategic prevention framework, really focused on youth substance misuse. And then we supported that development of that youth prevention board to really guide strategies because youth listen to youth. I think that's what we found most of all. And so how do we best equip youth to be able to do a lot of the work and just share the general information? And so during the second year, we really began implementing those programs, policies, and practices. And then COVID, which, that was a challenge for everyone, but we had a really great group of youth and then also dedicated community partners as well. And we were able to shift and change a lot of strategies. And actually, during that COVID time, we were able to offer a large scale youth conference that was all virtual, was wildly successful. We actually had a lot of youth from outside of Douglas County and from other states as well, because kids were looking for things to do during that time. And so since then, we've been able to evolve and build on that as well. Next slide, please. So I really just want to highlight a few of the programs and strategies that our coalitions offer. So YEP is as I mentioned, the youth branch of the board that we work with. And then Sources of Strength is our primary program. And this is really that upstream suicide prevention program that Meg was sharing. Again, there's lots of the outcomes with Sources of Strength really do focus on both substance use and suicide prevention, because again, a lot of the protective factors that you're implementing with Sources of Strength really relate to the aspect of substance misuse as well. We also do a lot of safe medication disposal strategies. So we've implemented drop boxes in 6 pharmacies in Douglas County, especially in our outlying communities. So Lawrence is the largest community, but then we have the outside areas of Eudora, Baldwin, and Lecompton. And oftentimes it's difficult for folks to get into the larger city just from, transportation. So for example, Eudora is only 6 miles from Lawrence, but it might as well be an island for someone who doesn't have a car or something else to get to that community. We also offer Reward and Reminder, which is a program that is focused on tobacco retailer training, essentially. So we send underage youth in with our law enforcement partners to attempt to purchase tobacco or vaping products. If the clerk refuses the sale, they get a little $5 gift card and a thank you card saying, thank you for not selling tobacco products to youth. We appreciate your help. If they choose to sell, they get a red card saying, hey, remember to check ID. It's illegal to sell you cigarettes or vaping products to youth. So we've had really good partnerships with our retailers on that and have had a lot of positive interactions there. We also offer Handle with Care in our Lawrence School District and then also our Baldwin City School District as well. As of our last reporting, so this school year, we've had about 80 Handle with Care referrals. So these are referrals that let's say law enforcement interacts with a student outside of school hours, or they go to a home, let's say responding to domestic violence or something, and there's a child there. They find out where that child goes to school, and they contact the building principal and say, hey, Susie had an interaction, her family had an interaction with law enforcement tonight. She might be a little out of sorts at school tomorrow. So, please handle her with care. They don't say what specifically happened or who was involved, that type of thing. They just let the school know that, hey, this kid, maybe they're going to be tired and they might need to go to the nurse's office to take a nap. Maybe they're just going to be out of sorts. So maybe today's not the best day to take a test. Just being mindful of things that have happened to that child outside of school hours that might impact their school day. We've had a lot of success with that. And really, our police partners have really championed that effort within their school districts. We also offer the good behavior game as part of one of our strategies as well. This is really a classroom management strategy that we've had good luck with. We have implemented this in other non-school settings as well and are looking at ways that we can enhance this project as well. really giving the kids an opportunity to learn appropriate classroom behaviors. It's not something extra that teachers have to do, but rather it's a way to manage classroom. In our Baldwin City School District, this has been wildly embraced. We actually started by just training the first grade classrooms, but we've since evolved into K through 3, and so that is evolved in their full primary center as well, and then moving into their intermediate center. Some additional strategies, we have a variety of work group strategies. So we have a suicide prevention work group in particular. We have a DFC, or a drug-free community strategy work group, that really focuses on what are some strategies we can implement and do that align with our drug-free strategy work. We offer a summer wellness series that'll be coming up, and you can go to our Engage Douglas County website and you can check out what those summer wellness series have looked like previously. Essentially, it's just a short little kind of educational clip targeting, parents, focusing on how to keep your kids well in the summer. So this summer we'll be doing a piece around safety planning, some pieces on online safety, some pieces around substance misuse as well. Just giving those tips so they're easy to access. Parents can access them 24/7. A real easy watch there. We've done a lot of media campaigns as well. So you can Engage Douglas County is on Facebook and Instagram, and then YEP is on Instagram as well. And so you can see some of those campaigns as well. We've done some early intervention campaigns. We've done some vaping prevention campaigns. We'll be kicking off our Mental Health Month campaign soon. April, we had some alcohol awareness campaigns. So really trying to align with that kind of the annual calendar on things that are occurring. We do a lot of parent training as well. And most excitingly, we just kicked off our Leading Causes of Life 5K and Festival. That happened on Saturday. It was an incredible event. This was an event we worked closely with HeadQuarters on to promote. We had about 84 runners in our first 5K, and then probably about 150 folks in attendance who just came out for the festival piece. We had yard games, just different activities for families and people to participate in. And it was really just a real positive event. Though there are actually photos, on our website that you can check out as well. We've done a lot of partnerships with our alcohol retailers as well, really focusing on thanking our retailers for not selling alcohol to minors. So that's been our big piece there is alcohol retailers want to do the right thing. They recognize their license can be at jeopardy if they sell to minors. And so really, we don't have an issue with retailers selling to minors. Our primary issues come from those who are 21 years or older providing alcohol to minors. So we have some education to do in that regard there. We do have some community-specific work groups as well. So we have a Eudora work group that we have a great mobilizer for that work, and she is just taken the bull by the horns and has really implemented some really cool things in Eudora in particular. They offered an Embrace Eudora health fair where they had a variety of health screenings and just other resources available to the community. And the great thing there was that it was all accessible to folks in Eudora. Again, that transportation barrier was eliminated just because everything came to them. The Eudora work group also really focuses on some food inequity as well in the summer. So they support what's called Feeding Eudora, which is a summer lunch program essentially that provides free meals to anyone in the Eudora community. So some really great stuff there. Also, most recently, this semester in January, we did kick off some school-based prevention specialist programming. So this is where we place 2 prevention specialists in the Eudora and then the Perry-LeCompton School District. This is a pilot project. We're just trying to assess, how's it going? Because oftentimes what we hear from school staff is they have lots of other jobs, they have lots of other things happening, and so crisis is really what they're focusing on. What we're hoping is that if we can put prevention specialists in the schools, we'll be able to alleviate some of that crisis by heading it off before it happens. So like Meg mentioned, that upstream approach, placing those prevention specialists is that upstream piece so we can connect with kids before they hit that crisis point and implement some of those things. So we are currently in conversations with Douglas County to see how we can enhance that and bring that to the other school districts as well. Next slide, please. So as Meg mentioned, this is our kind of some YEP activities, and Meg, feel free to pop in on some of these as well. YEP has done a great job. We have YEP chapters in all of the middle school and high schools in the county right now. Some are certainly more robust than others, but we're currently working on identifying ways that we can train up our YEP sponsors and really focus on ensuring that they are aware of what needs to happen and seeing how we can best support some of that work there. One of the things the YEP group has done is connected with law enforcement related to relationship building, because one of the things that we found was that students felt oftentimes their interactions with law enforcement were not positive. And so we really wanted to kind of change that narrative. And so Eudora in particular has embraced these law enforcement luncheons. They usually have one at least every semester now, where our sheriff's department, city PD, they go to the middle school in particular, play games with the kids, have lunch with them. It's a really neat thing to happen there as well. They also focus a lot. Oh, sorry, Meg, go ahead. I saw you unmute there.
No, I was just going to give some context for how the groups in each school communicate with one another, because the other cool component of YEP is that they are implementing these strategies in their own local schools, but quarterly they get together with the other groups in the county to share what they've been doing, to brainstorm ideas for this next quarter, and really get to celebrate and interact with folks from different schools. So I just think that's a really important piece to highlight.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because again, a lot of times our schools, our students in our schools are pretty transient. So, you might have a kid from Eudora who transfers to Lawrence and then they end up transferring back. So if we can have some of those similar aspects and they have some connection there, it does help. YEP has also hosted a variety of kind of spirit weeks, which is really focused on those healthy behaviors. Eudora in particular, they're focusing on healthy friendships right now. And so I think they did a kind of some flower planting and some just different things. I mean, the kids come up with the ideas and they really take it and run with it, which is exciting as well. They also have done some campaign pieces. And that's part of the Sources of Strength program, really does focus on those campaigns. And so the students really dive into that and decide, how they want to manage those. They've also done some policy work related to tobacco use in particular and health equity. In Lawrence and Douglas County, they've gone to community meetings and been able to advocate for policy change and just share how some of those things have impacted them. They've focused on a variety of, stress reduction activities, because a lot of the things that we found when we did some focus groups with students was that they were self-medicating related to anxiety. And so how do we help them manage their anxiety and stress? Because it's hard being a kid today compared to, being a teenager, 30 years ago. The world is a lot different and we need to respond differently to them. Done a lot of work around vaping prevention, and then students also have the opportunity to attend the CADCA conferences. We've taken youth the past 3 summers, I believe, to CADCA. Usually it's a small group. This summer we'll be taking 8 youth from the Eudora and Perry Lecompton districts. We've taken students from Lawrence previously as well. But this is an opportunity for students to network with peers across the country to see that they're doing similar activities, doing different things. The last group we took, it was the first time they got to ride on an airplane, which was, exciting. So they're getting, different opportunities as well by being able to participate in this group. Additionally, they've done some advocacy at the Capitol Take Down Tobacco Day, and then participation in some just national campaigns as well. So really just a variety of different aspects. And Meg, I don't know if there are any other aspects of YEP that you'd want to highlight. With Meg being a co-sponsor of that with Ariel Cohn from our office, Meg really probably has a better overview of some of the things that are happening there.
I think that this really highlights sort of the main projects that they've been involved in. The only thing I would add is that a lot of the activities that the YEP students participate in are built around the Sources of Strength wheel. So the Sources of Strength wheel includes 8 components of overall wellness, and there's a curriculum that they get trained in and learn how to be really supportive to their peers, and also how to apply strength to their own lives. So essentially, it's a way to teach coping skills and strategies for navigating really tough things in life. And so the stuff that you're seeing on this list here in front of you is a lot of times informed by that Sources of Strength wheel. So Sources of Strength really ties everything together.
Thanks, Meg. And I believe that concludes kind of our presentation piece. And I think we're open for questions at this point. We really just wanted to give kind of a high level overview of the things that were happening in the county and just how we're collaborating, with each other. I'm certainly grateful to have Meg's knowledge and expertise as we partner on all these things as well.
We can go to the next slide. So yeah, do anybody have any questions about any of the components, or are there things that people would like to try in their district or in their community that they have questions about? I see we have the prevention specialist in Perry Compton in the meeting, and that's wonderful. So and very willing to reach out. We can move on to sort of the questions that we've come up with. So as we think about school districts and local communities that are working with kids, especially kids that they may worry about being at risk of using substances or even using substances, what do you what would be important to understand or think about in supporting youth and families that you have these concerns about?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece that I think about is ensuring that the youth and family have a connected adult. Oftentimes, a lot of the kids that we work with, their parents may not be as engaged. They might be working multiple jobs, so they may not be seeing some of the things that another caring adult might see. So we really try to encourage this model of, if a kid can have, 2 other caring adults in their lives besides their family members, it really makes a difference in how they do a lot of the work. We try to be real intentional about connecting to resources that are local, so that again, transportation is not a barrier. I know I've hammered that quite a bit, but transportation is really a challenge for our communities outside of Lawrence. Lawrence is where a lot of our services are, and it is sometimes physically impossible to get people to other services. And so we really try to be mindful about bringing services to school, which is part of why we've done the school-based prevention work. We also have what are called RAP workers in the school districts, and those are mental health clinicians that are in the schools as well. So we really try to be mindful about connecting with other service providers, so we know what the resources are, so that we can connect those to parents and young children as well.
I think just to piggyback on that, on more of an individual level, like meeting families where they're at and not expecting them to be able to show up in the same way that other families do. Because as Chrissy has mentioned, there are some families that just don't have the ability to show up in the same way. And that doesn't mean that they don't care as much. It doesn't mean that they're not as invested. But it could just be a variety of factors that are impacting their ability to connect with their youth in the school. And so meeting them where they're at can be, and I know that's like a really kind of simplified way of putting it, but if you're able to connect with a youth and their family in a way that is meaningful to them, they're more likely to engage in services and take advantage of those opportunities than if you were to just prescribe a one-size-fits-all approach.
I'm going to go to a question from the chat, and then we'll come back to these. Karsten Bruns asked about preschools, but just really, as we think about substance use initiation and sort of whole lifespan, what components, or what are some components, or what are some areas of support that can be implemented, or in at younger ages in elementary schools, or even at the preschool level? What do you think is important to understand about supporting kids at those ages that impact substance use initiation or use of substances?
Yeah, so we actually just submitted a proposal to the county to enhance our efforts and expand those to preschools because we do recognize that we're missing an opportunity. So we have worked with the CAC, the uh, Children's Advocacy Center in Lawrence, and so they have a lot of resources, and so we work closely with them on a variety of different topics, and they're a part of our Engaged Douglas County Coalition. But we see the need to move our work to preschool. So when you think about, oh my gosh, what am I going to talk to a preschooler about substance use? It's really about age appropriate messaging. So it's talking about healthy behaviors, not taking medication that someone gives to you, not doing things that are unhealthy. So really just being mindful of how we're interacting with young people, talking about healthy versus unhealthy, some of those pieces. We have this little medicine box that shows kind of how difficult it can be to tell the difference between medication and candy. And so, which really enforces that idea of know what you're taking and not just taking things that you're given. So just being mindful of some of those things, and then also just starting to talk with parents about how to have the conversation with young people about substance misuse. And it really is that age appropriate piece of we're talking about healthy behaviors, healthy friends, just being mindful of taking care of yourself as well. And I know, Meg, you have some same approaches with suicide prevention too.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was surprising to me when I started in this work is that young children know about these things, right? Young children know what suicide is more often than you'd think. And so being able to have those age appropriate but very transparent conversations are really important. Additionally, helping to teach coping skills and strategies for navigating stress can be really effective in long-term addressing those risk factors. And the more coping skills and protective factors that are available to someone, the less likely, not saying that it will never happen, but the less likely it is to impact their well-being long-term.
And that good behavior game that we do implement, we have had a few preschool teachers implement that in their classrooms. While it has not been widely accepted as practice, we do have some who are implementing that, and that really it does show long-term outcomes related to less incidents of substance misuse and suicide as well. So that is one evidence-based tool that we do use and try to promote as well.
So I'm going to skip a question because so much of this series has been about programs that are in the community as well as partnering with schools. And both DECA and HeadQuarters are both community-based organizations that work across the state. And you've brought up today even some of the partnerships and working with law enforcement and so many different community organizations, but also working with school districts. So what do you think is important about that relationship across the community and with schools to support kids? What would you say is important to keep in mind, or what's important to success?
I think the biggest thing that I found is identifying what the schools need and what the community partners need. You can't go in and be like, here's the things I can give you, because maybe they don't want the things that they can give you. And so we've just spent a lot of time. We used to have a group of superintendents in Douglas County that would meet regularly, and that was critical when we first started this work of getting that superintendent buy-in, to hear what they had to say. Here's what we value. Here's what we're challenged by, and we've had some transition in superintendents, and we will have another one soon. And if there's any folks in the Pittsburgh area, you'll be getting one of our superintendents soon. JB Elliott, he'll be heading your way in the summer, and we're terribly sad to lose him, but what a great addition for you all. But he's been a huge champion of prevention work. And when we met with him to talk about, hey, would you have any interest in a school-based prevention specialist sitting in your district? He's like, absolutely, yes. Here's the things we need. Can you help with that? And I think we really just try to tailor the skills we have and the resources we have to fit what the district needs. I think that's the critical piece.
I think that I would add persistence. School folks are inundated with so many different requests and information dumps, and they have a lot of decisions to make, and they wear a lot of hats. And so I think it's important first and foremost to acknowledge that to the people you're working with. And also keep showing up, right? Because the more of an impact that you can make by showing up and advocating and asking, what do you need, I think is going to be something that goes a long way, especially because of how busy and inundated those folks are. So persistence, I think, is important.
So kind of turning that on its head a little bit, what do you think is important as you want to impact issues like this, to keep in mind about engaging with kids and families and youth? This can be stuff that can be hard to kind of, really figure out how to have that connection with kids on. And so what do you think is important to keep in mind as you try to develop resources like this in partnership and to really engage kids?
A lot of it comes from really letting the kids lead the way, letting them choose. When we first started this group, I had my own kids that I kind of bounced ideas off of. I'm like, hey, we'd like to do this. And they're like, well, mom, that's stupid. Or, so really just hearing some of the things they were saying. And, really we brought kids together, but they helped guide the work. They said, here's what's important to us. Here's what we want to do. And initially, a lot of the work really focused on that mental health aspect. That's what kids wanted to talk about. And so it was our role to kind of weave in that substance misuse piece in there as well. Because they were really like mental health, mental health, mental health. And we're like, and here's how you tie this substance misuse piece in there and how we tie that in. That's kind of my 2 cents there. Mag, I don't know what you're thinking there.
I mean, that's exactly what I would say too. Like, listen to the youth, believe the youth. If they offer up an idea that you think is silly, or if you're kind of like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work out, you can talk with them through some of those challenges that they may face in those decisions. But ultimately, it's important to listen to them and take what they're saying and let them implement things that they think will work, because they do. I've been shocked at some of the projects that they put out that I thought would fall flat that just totally picked up momentum. And so I think it's important to trust that they know what will work with their peers, and also believe them when they say something will work or something won't work. I think a lot of times youth are met with this fear that adults won't believe them, they won't listen to them. And so provide that space where they do feel listened to and heard and like supported in their ideas.
I was interested in, you brought up in passing how often mental health, stress, anxiety play a role in all these types of issues. And, when we think a lot about sort of unmet needs in children and families, how do you tie those types of things into this work? Or how does this work? How can you kind of overcome some of the issues or circumstances that a child may have in their sort of life situation?
A lot of the things we do really focus on just listening to the students, because sometimes what the things they're sharing are going to unveil or reveal something else as well. And really ensuring that if you're listening to the student, that you provide something to them, that you connect them to a resource. We always tell the students that don't be the only one to know. So for example, with Sources of Strength, we're really, training students to, help their peers who might be experiencing suicide ideation or something like that. They shouldn't be the only ones to know. And so that comes into that connecting to a trusted adult piece as well, of just not leaving them hanging. And a lot of times students are really resistant to, I don't know, tell on their peers, for lack of a better word. They don't want to disclose that information. So I'm really excited about this Hey HQ line, which is really that youth to youth connection, because we really have to connect young people and ensure that they are equipped to share information and connect to the next person.
I just wanted to say in passing that we're hearing from a lot of people in the chat, interest in both the good behavior game, which is a really fascinating approach to classroom management and really successful and a positive approach, as well as to handle with care. And I just have to say in passing that a school district I work with closely in Missouri has the Handle with Care program in place, and it is a great program. So we'll make sure to send along resources to everyone about both of those, along with some of the other things mentioned today. So, as we sort of complete the series and think about some things, I'm just really curious, kind of what's the biggest piece of advice, you would both give working in communities, working with schools, supporting kids and their families. What do you think is most important to keep in mind as we sort of sum up this series of things from two people that do this every day, all day with their programs across the state?
I think the most important piece is just being willing to listen and collaborate. Um, it is so critical because what I go into a district or a community thinking they need might not be what they really need. And so that's been a difficult lesson I've learned early on in my career. Um, I maybe was a little more, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it. And I didn't take the time to listen. And so since then, that's evolved and it's been a much more successful approach in getting people on board and connecting and collaborating. Just the power of community collaborations are huge. And so I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would have as well is identify your community coalitions and engage them. Coalitions want to help. And I think oftentimes we go to the school and say, school, can you do X, Y, and Z? Schools are overburdened. Schools have so much going on, but there are community partners and community coalitions who can help with that. And so connecting schools and community coalitions more efficiently, I think is a critical piece.
I would echo everything Chrissy said. And I think another piece of advice that I would offer up is really channel your patience. It takes time to grow a program. It doesn't always look like it's a success in the beginning. But if you stick with it and keep putting energy into the youth that are showing up, that will go a long way. And nothing looks beautiful right away, right? So it just takes time to build that program and sustainability. And so I think, yeah, just continuing to be patient with the process is really important. It may look like you take 5 steps forward and then 10 steps back, right? And so if you just keep up that persistence and patience, I think that would be one of my biggest pieces of advice, because it can feel disheartening when it doesn't look like a success right away, but good things come to those who wait, right?
So is there anything else before we pass back to Christy? Thank you guys so much. DECA and HeadQuarters are two shining lights in Kansas, and so really appreciate you being here and appreciate your sharing your experience with both about these programs that impact substance use, but also just about how to kind of work in communities and how to partner with schools. So Christy, I think we're ready to kind of sum up.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Meg and Chrissy, for joining us today to share about your organizations and your innovative approaches and programs. And we will gather some of the resources that people have been asking about in the chat and make sure that we send them out to everybody. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. This is our last session in the series, and we would really love your feedback. There should be a survey in your inbox. It's very short. There are only 16 questions. It should take like 2 minutes to fill out. And we really do read your responses and use them to implement changes. So we would love your feedback on that. We will send follow-up materials to your email. They'll also be available on the Telehealth Rocks website and Facebook page. I'm putting those links here in the chat. We have enjoyed learning with you, so watch your email for upcoming training opportunities, and we'd love to see you again. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.